Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports Mountaineer Nation. I figured I need to make a part 2 and follow up to my video from late last week in which I talked about the roster management operation of West Virginia's football roster for the 2026 season. Kind of gave a big picture overview on what I thought for retention, what I thought for high school recruiting, I thought for transfer portal recruiting, kind of playing around with the numbers based on that article from ESPN.com last summer in which it gave a breakdown of what different players cost at different positions and kind of using that to say who all should be retained, how much it's going to cost for the players being retained, how much it's going to potentially take for West Virginia to fill in about 16, I feel like, high quality of need transfer players, and then speculating on what it's costing some of these high school recruits. So things change at the speed of light in the world of college football, especially in the world of recruiting. So West Virginia has already received, I think, 3 more commitments since I made that show last week, and we were on the highs of celebrating the commitment of Kevin Brown in football and Miles Sadler in basketball. So my part 2 for this, and I was thinking about making this as a short because West Virginia, I've never made a short before, and I feel like I need to have that as part of the different options on my channel. But I don't think I can keep it under 3 minutes. So for just this sake, bear with me. This might be a shorter video than usual, but just what I want to say, kind of get off my chest, because I didn't fill in who are the top 5 players that West Virginia needs to retain for 2026. So I'm going to kind of work backwards from 5 all the way down to 1. There's a whole lot more than 5. I feel like 24 is really a number that I would like to say that West Virginia not only has to provide a full scholarship for, but has to pay on top of it. But 4 and 5, I think you can kind of put as a tandem. And ironically, or coincidentally, however you want to call it, all of these top 5 players are on the offensive side of the ball. So whereas, the West Virginia went so far and heavy into the transfer portal last year for defensive players for volume, I think you're going to have to rinse and repeat and do it again and just try and retain offensive talent. So 4 and 5. A tandem pair, I think, are on the offensive line, and I'm going Nick Cray at left tackle and Landon Livingston at center. Now, both of these guys it's the offensive line as a whole really got off to a slow start, but really I feel like once it got to that TCU game, West Virginia really started to turn a corner. Scotty Fox coming in, at quarterback, and I feel like they've built the foundation with Coach Jack Bicknell Jr. on the offensive line that now you want to go out there and use them as foundational pieces for next year. Now, I don't think that breaking the bank to retain them, so the numbers that ESPN.com reports anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million for a tackle. This was last year, and $300,000 to $700,000 is something that you're going to want to spend on these guys, because again, do you pay for past performance or for future results? In this case, I think you kind of want to take a bit of a tweener approach. I don't want to say lowball offers to these guys, but I don't think that the highest bidder is chomping at the bit to take either one of them. But I think they've shown enough in 2025 that says, hey, with another year within the system, another year of strength and conditioning, now Landon Livingston being a 5th-year player, Nick Cray being a 4th-year player, solidify down left tackle and center, and then with Kevin Brown coming in at right tackle, Donovan Haslam seems like he's done enough, I feel like, and along the same vein and kind of alongside both Landon Livingston and Nick Cray, that can make for a more formidable offensive line in 2026. So don't think that we're going back to the dark ages of the Ohio game week 2. I think that the offensive line is now they're on the way back up. And rather than having to go back out there and go get another whole offensive line next year, I think keep those, like I said, those 3 pieces, and then try and, in the transfer portal, go for an established right guard. Is it Kyle Altuner from Virginia Tech? Does he want to stay at Virginia Tech and play for James Franklin? Who knows? Or could West Virginia go elsewhere? Number 3, I think this one it kind of could argue between two and three, but I think number three for me is Cam Vaughn right now. The number two, just to kind of put it out there, is Jaheim White. I think you can kind of flip either one of those, but based upon your own interpretation of what you feel as if more valuable to your offense. But Cam Vaughn, I feel like is a little volatile, but has all of the makings out there. I nickname him the Chris Henry Jr. of 20 years later. Just the way that he likes to agitate opponents, he likes to block, but sometimes just can kind of ghost out there, or West Virginia can't get him the ball. I think the passing woes that West Virginia had during the first 2/3 of this season hindered what Cam Vaughn's ceiling was, but then he made those big plays in the TCU game, in the Houston game, at the end of the BYU game, and you can just see the potential oozing out of Cam Vaughn. Why I put it 3 and not 2 is because I'm still just waiting for the evolution of this pass game and whether Coach Rodriguez is going to put more of an emphasis on it in 2026 with Scotty Fox at quarterback. Or are they going to want to continue to lead on the ground game and run the ball as much as they did in 2025 and then in previous years? But Cam Vaughn, the wide receiver room, I feel like is just so thin. He's a bona fide number one wide receiver. I'd like to see West Virginia still go out there and get a number two possession type wide receiver. I know over the weekend, West Virginia has added got one over the weekend, and I think within the last couple of weeks, Keon Hutchins and what's his name? Kedrick Triplett out of the JUCO ranks, visited, committed. 2 of the 3 top JUCO prospects in the country coming to West Virginia. But are you counting on those guys to be a bona fide number 2 wide receiver? Kind of like what West Virginia was hoping it was getting in Jaden Bray at the start of the season. So I think that's the kind of type of player that I'm looking for. Someone who at some point in time was an established wide receiver at another Power 4 program to play alongside Cam Vaughn, take kind of the pressure off Cam Vaughn to then flirt Rodney Gallagher, Christian Hamilton, kind of at that 3 position of wide receivers, and then the JUCO guys can be 4 wide receivers. Or if they get better, they catch on fast and they can shoot up the charts. And we've seen how this season that West Virginia's played somewhere in the ballpark of around 7 wide receivers, it seemed like. So if that's the number, I still think Vaughn, Hamilton, Gallagher, the 2 JUCO guys, bring in another wide receiver that you can get into this offense. And I feel pretty good about 6 or 7 wide receivers for how little that West Virginia throws the ball. But I think that can see an uptick in 2026. So then number 2, Jaheim White. I think just the potential was the ceiling. The sky was the limit for Jaheim White coming on to the season. Seeing some of his videos of his rehab, just seems like he's very committed to his rehab. And he will be a full good to go. Hopefully they could be back for spring practice to just kind of get his legs underneath him. Maybe doesn't need to take full-on contact throughout the spring, can do a little more in summer camp, and then be ready to go by week 1. We don't have the full story on those injuries. What were they? How significant were they? Hopefully that comes out over the off season or into next year, kind of what all he has dealt with that then put him out for the entire year. But I think at this running back room, if we just see how important the running back position is for West Virginia, alongside the quarterback to both run the ball, a la Pat White and the Steve Slayton. So I liked what I've seen out of Dior Hubbard this year. I liked what I saw out of Sincere Bowers in the Arizona State game with one of the most amazing plays that I've seen in all of my years of that 90-yard touchdown on a 3rd and almost 40 type of play. That was absolutely insane. So both of those guys have earned, I feel like, the position to come back for next year to fill out. I feel like Dior Hubbard be 2, the Sincere Bowers be your 3rd back. They brought in this JUCO Martavius Boswell over from the JUCO ranks to fill out that fourth position. If Curtis Jones is going to commit to kind of this half and half, playing pass rusher, also playing offense, and West Virginia can bring in one more big-bodied back, I think that's your five. I think that's your five running backs. I feel really comfortable with going into that in 2025. And the thing is, then you say, well, Carson, why do you put such a precedence on Jaheim White if you think five backs are going to get involved? Well, here's my opinion. This might just be a hot take that only, and I did allude to this, talk about this, I feel like this past offseason. Is sometime, or I would just say in this case, I think that Jaheim White is better with fewer carries. Now, I'd love to see a point in time where he could average somewhere around 20 carries, but that wasn't the case coming into this season, so this was the prove-it year that he could be that kind of warhammer that could take upwards of 20 carries. We've seen Dior Hubbard do that, and then so many carries that he took in that Colorado game, he was hurt in the Arizona State game, and now he's not playing this week against Texas Tech. So the fresher that you can keep these backs is the better. So I don't think that Jaheim White necessarily needs to take 20 carries, average 240, or 240 for the entire season. I think that he can be really effective and average back upwards around 7+ yards per carry like he had 2 seasons ago as a true freshman. So I'm not saying that needs to hold him back in his physical development and putting on weight and all that, because he looked yoked coming into this season. So I still think do all of those things, but it's just like the cupboard isn't so bare at the running back position. I feel like that you have to think that like what you thought coming into this season, it was going to be 20+ carries per game for Jaheim White in this system. So I think the fewer is going to end up leading to the better, and you can use some of these other backs. And keeping fresh legs, that is so important and vital, because backs wear down in this sport. You have to have big backs, and Jaheim White is never going to play, I feel like, 210 or bigger. Like that's way too heavy. Remember when Steve Slayton tried that in 2007 as a junior, he put on weight after his Heisman finalist year in 2006, and he lost a step. So I don't want to sacrifice Jaheim White's stellar, exceptional speed of getting to the outside, beyond the tackle, to the sidelines, and being a home run threat, because he's trying to put on so much weight to be able to take on 200 carries or more for the season. So I'd rather him stay in kind of that same kind of range around 150 to 200, and then try and use some of the other backs sporadically as the season goes along. And injuries do happen. So number one player that I hope that West Virginia retains for 2025 is Scotty Fox. I think the writing is on the wall. I think we can kind of pair these two segments, because I wanted to talk about some of the players that I think West Virginia maybe will have a hard decision, that Coach Rodriguez and staff will have to make kind of hard decisions on, of less nudging out the door through the transfer portal. But let's talk about the quarterback position right now. If you had to pick right now, who do you want to be the quarterback for West Virginia in 2026? Do you want it to be Scotty Fox, or do you want it to be Nico Marchiol? I'm not looking at the long-term potential here. I know that means, well, if Scotty Fox isn't starting for West Virginia in 2026, he will very much entertain offers to go somewhere else where he will get paid and have a starting position to go play. But I would just say, I don't know necessarily right now whether I've seen enough from either player to make that kind of a determination, because I feel as if the reason why Nico Marchiol went down with injury was, we were talking about this, take yourself back just a couple of months, and it was because of West Virginia's porous offensive line. Well, I think if you gave Nico Marchiol the offensive line that we saw in TCU and beyond this season, we would see different results. The thing is, feel as if Nico Marchiol kind of made his nest. Whether you believe the Pete Nakos report or whether you think it's all hoo-ha that he's going to be entering the transfer portal regardless to go somewhere else this upcoming next month or when the transfer portal opens January 2nd. It's just, now does Coach Rodriguez want to move on, want to go to the hot hand, the young up-and-coming sophomore, and then build around him? Will the cost for Scotty Fox be a little bit more, I would say, team-friendly, like thinking about the difference in pays for like rookie pay in the NFL versus those who are established starters and veterans? How does the locker room feel? I think most importantly, do they still believe in Nico? Do they want to have Nico around? Or have they also kind of moved on to Scotty? So that's kind of where I'm at, and I feel as if that because of what has happened, I feel like these last few weeks, is that this is now Scotty Fox's team and program. Now, I've heard some other people come out here and say, well, West Virginia, and I've seen some comments even on my videos, West Virginia still needs to go out there and get a number 2 or 3 quarterback then. Well, then why can't that be Marchiol? Could both of those guys go, if Marchiol will stay, use his last year, or if he can get a medical red shirt to preserve 2 years worth of eligibility, does he want to compete? Does he want to go into this off season and say, hey, now with a better offensive line in front of me, I can go out there and I can win the starting position for this program? I don't even know if Coach Rodriguez is really entertaining that question. If he didn't like the way that things went down when Marchiol left Morgantown, went to his own private doctors out west. I don't know what's happened behind closed doors, if that's even being entertained, or has he moved on? And so that would be really necessarily a moot point at that point in time. But if it is truly Scotty Fox's team, and I feel like the vast majority of the fan base feels the same way, I'd love to know what's going on in the locker room with some of the players and how they feel. Then West Virginia can make a sizable investment into Scotty Fox, because I'm sure there are other Power 4 programs who would love to be in the same position to have a guy with the kind of talent that he has. So West Virginia can make that. Quarterback, unfortunately, is always the highest paid position of anyone on the team. So I think he's going to have a sizable investment put back into him. And I'm very curious to know whether, again, is West Virginia paying based on past performance, or is it on the speculation of future results? I had a great conversation this past weekend with my dad on this very topic. And I have to imagine that there has to be some sort of pay structure with incentives laced throughout, because all these guys are like essentially on 1-year deals, it seems like. That if you see so many snaps, if you start this many games, if you achieve this many, completions, rushing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, all the same kinds of things I feel like they're talked about in fantasy football, and then a seat receives such and such a grades, I feel like maybe on the offensive line or so on and so forth, then you will get X, and this will be very incentives-laden pay structure, rather than doing what I'm trying to do and just put down, hey, here is kind of your base salary from what it seems like for the 2026 season. So that's maybe how West Virginia can avoid any kind of situation where it's overpaying for players who underperform or, have injury situations. So, like, for example, my case in point of Jaheim White is whatever his deal was for 2025, he only gave you 6 quarters. Now, that's not his fault. He didn't want to get injured. He wanted to play the entire season. But now, are you now paying him for 2026 what, again, is it kind of in the middle? Is it of what if he would have had an awesome season this year, you would have paid him even higher, but also accounting for the fact if he got paid for this year, isn't going to enter the transfer portal, like, hey, man, we paid you for this season and you were hurt for it. Would you be willing to take a little bit of a hometown discount because we've already paid you? Or is that's just not the way things are done in college football in 2025? That's what I don't know. So to try and balance all of those factors, and this will be a recurring challenge, I feel like. Again, so if Scotty Fox pops off and 2026 coming into his junior year? Does he get a major pay raise kind of thing? I really, really wish that this was a little more public information than it was, shrouded in secrecy. So that's where I would go. I would go your 2 offensive linemen, Landon Livingston, Nick Cray, Cam Vaughn, Jaheim White, Scotty Fox. All seems pretty okay, Carson. You didn't tell us anything that we probably already didn't know. But I just think that those are 5 that make up a core of about 24 players that West Virginia is going to want to keep. But on having to pay. Then there, I feel like, is a group of players who West Virginia would love to keep, but don't want to have to pay as part of the rev share and how that works. And then I still don't know what all of these freshmen and JUCO recruits are being promised as part of the rev share and NIL kinds of deals. And then how does this affect West Virginia's transfer portal recruiting strategy? The way I feel it in the last week or so, and I don't think West Virginia is done by any means, is I really do think that West Virginia is going with a youth movement in 2026. Is that you will see, of course, you're going to still see the best players get out onto the field, no matter who they are, whether they're true freshmen all the way up to redshirt seniors. But you're going to see a younger team play. I don't think that West Virginia is going to add as many transfer portal recruits, which might have some people just pulling their hair out. And for me, I don't have much hair anyway, so I can't really pull that out. That I think that you don't want to take a full-on Colorado approach and just go Florida State and go so heavy into the transfer portal that that's who you're annually relying on. No, but I also don't want it to be a Clemson kind of model that you only want to build through the high school ranks. But the way I see it and the way it's adding up, West Virginia, having 5 offensive line commits already committed for this year. They now have 6 wide receivers, 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, multiple tight ends. That West Virginia is trying to build, and that's what I'm curious is, are you trying to build a base of your recruits, not Neil Brown recruited players, and the guys who are now a year's in, can go through the full calendar year of Coach Rodriguez evaluations? So what that, I guess, means to say is, are we going to see some of, these guys who are young, currently on this 2025 team, be ushered the door, who were like, oh crap, wow, you're really starting over, and then backfilling that with true freshmen while still going out into the transfer portal and getting high quality starters. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. So I'll be very curious to see what the transfer portal looks like, come the late December and into January, or whispers of a mass exodus from this football team. That's just what I don't know. I just don't know if Coach Rodriguez is still going to take a sickle to most of this roster and try, right there, if those are 25 players that I'm saying that I would love for West Virginia to keep but not pay, if they are not accepting of a full scholarship just to be on the team and compete for a second or third string position, I feel like for 2026 that he's going to say bye-bye, usher out the door, don't let the door hit you where you walked out, and that's it. And then we'll fill that in with transfer portals. And out of that 25, that's still, I feel like I have 30 players on my roster outlook spreadsheet that I'm just saying I don't think you have really much of any chance of worth, keeping on the roster at all. Like that scholarship and roster position, it's on one and the same now with the house settlement of guys who do you really even want to have filling a roster position? I'm sorry, but I don't think West Virginia needs 8 quarterbacks. I know that 5 played this year, but this was an anomaly and was predominantly because of the shortcomings on the offensive line that I'll stick by that. So a thinning out at the quarterback position. I think you're going to see some running backs move. I think there's some, unfortunately, dead weight in the tight end room and the wide receiver room from some guys that West Virginia had brought over this past offseason in the transfer portal, or retained from the old staff, or incoming recruits that West Virginia didn't really necessarily have a feel on. There were quite a few walk-on-esque type players within the offensive line group. And there are a couple of guys who are in their fifth years of eligibility who I just don't know if they have a position within this two deep. On the defensive line, quite a few walk-ons. Linebacker room, I feel like is going to be, there's still a lot to be determined because you're losing a Chase Wilson, because you're losing Reed Carrico, and those are the guys who have predominantly started. Now, Ben Cutter, Ben Bogle have kind of been nice rotations in at the second level due to injuries, and just getting them some snaps on the field to keep Carrico and Wilson fresh. But are you trusting them to be day one starters come next season? I don't know. And then in the secondary, I've already talked about it. West Virginia's basically got to replace the whole secondary. So I get why they have 4 safeties committed already, 3 corners, and I still think you need to go get starters at each one of those 5 starting positions. And you need a punter, and you need a kicker. So it is going to be a wild and wonderful offseason, creating stuff for me to talk about. So thanks for tuning in for this edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. We'll have more to talk about as the weeks go on. If you've liked this video, please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube, and love to have you a subscriber. Before you go, I have a cool announcement. I have never done this. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know of any other West Virginia YouTube content creators, podcasters, whatever you want to call us folks who do make videos like this, have ever done this before. And I've only ever seen this one other place, and it's on the Crane & Co. guys from Daily Wire, who I really like, Jake Crane and his brother, and David Cohn. Blaine, David, Jake, sorry. But I am going to do a live commentary broadcast of the Texas Tech game this upcoming Saturday. So really excited to say I'm going to do this. Just want to put it out there. So I already put a post out on this channel about a week or so ago, just to kind of gauge if there was any sort of an appetite for this. It's going to be a little bit funky because it's going to be video of me watching the game. I'm going to give you live commentary of what I'm watching. Also, if I need to break down some plays, draw some things out, just experiencing what it would be like of watching a West Virginia football game with me, which, let me tell you, is an experience, even for my own, sake. Some people don't like to watch West Virginia games with me. But I'm going to try and make it fun. I hope that if you watch these videos and like, man, I'm really entertained by the stuff he says whenever it's just recorded content, I wonder what it's like live. So that's what we're going to do. So I think this is kind of like a niche thing that nobody else does out there, that I'm going to just try and throw my name out there and see if we have a good time with it. If it's fun, and people like it, then I'll come back and, maybe do this more for basketball or next season and stuff like that. Or if it's just a flop and it's a dud and we don't have to ever do it again. So this upcoming Saturday, if you're not, and if you're at the game in person, even better. It's just like I'm there next to you, or you can listen to me as you're watching what's happening onto the field. If you're not going to the game or can just only tune in, watch the game on ESPN and then come over here to YouTube, phone, tablet, whatever you use to listen to me. Open up my commentary. We'll go live right before at noon Eastern time. And then we'll do a live commentary broadcast of the West Virginia Texas Tech game. So I'm really excited for it. Got the thumbs up, good to go. The wife's gonna watch my little girl and dog for those 3 hours while it's happening. So they're all good to go. So won't have any I feel like major distractions while that's going on, and really excited for it. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. So much fun that you can experience a West Virginia football game with me virtually, and we're going to have a lot of fun during that broadcast. So love to know your comments, good, bad, or indifferent here on YouTube, and hit that thumbs up button. Like I said, once again, spot the ball. Let's go. Hail West Virginia.